We've all met someone who seems different from the rest of the world. They have a presence, an energy that feels calm, steady, and yet deeply powerful. You might wonder, what makes this person so unique? Today, we're going to explore the signs that show someone is truly spiritual. And the crazy thing is, you might just realize that you or someone close to you is already on this path. Let's dive into it. The first thing you'll notice about a spiritual person is they seem fearless. Most of us are caught up in fear of the future, fear of failure, fear of what others think of us. It's like a shadow that follows us everywhere we go. But a spiritual person has learned how to let go of fear because they understand something most people don't fear is an illusion. It's just a mental construct that keeps us trapped in a cycle of worry and anxiety. When you truly understand that fear doesn't control you, it loses its power. You start living in the moment, trusting that the universe has your back.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Here's a question for you. How much of your life is driven by fear? Think about that for a second. How many decisions do you make because you're afraid of something, afraid of failing, afraid of not being good enough, or afraid of what others will think? A spiritual person has learned to quiet those fears. They move through life with a sense of peace, knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. They've mastered the art of surrender, allowing the universe to guide them, rather than trying to control every outcome. Now, this doesn't mean they're passive or indifferent. Quite the opposite. A spiritual person is deeply connected to their intuition. They trust their inner voice more than they trust external sources like the media or the opinions of others. This is why they seem so independent, so free from the chaos of the world. They're not easily swayed by what's happening on the outside because they've cultivated a strong sense of inner knowing. And here's another sign: spiritual people don't live in a world of illusions. They've freed themselves from expectations, assumptions, and the need for extreme desires. Instead of chasing after things, they focus on embracing the present moment. They don't get caught up in the rat race, constantly striving for more money, more status, or more recognition. They understand that true fulfillment doesn't come from external achievements, it comes from within. Ask yourself this: how often do you find yourself chasing after something, thinking that once you get it, you'll finally be happy? A spiritual person knows that this is a trap. They've realized that happiness isn't found in the next promotion, the next relationship, or the next material possession. It's found in the here and now, in the quiet moments of gratitude and self-awareness. Another thing that sets a spiritual person apart is their ability to avoid judgment. Look around you. How often do people criticize or judge others, even unconsciously? It's almost like a reflex. But a spiritual person doesn't waste energy on judgment. They've moved beyond the need to compare themselves to others or to put people into boxes. They understand that every person is walking their own path, and they respect that. They don't need to tear others down to feel good about themselves because they've already found their sense of worth within. Think about the last time you judged someone. Maybe it was something small, a comment about what they were wearing or how they were acting. Why did you feel the need to judge? A spiritual person would simply observe, without attaching any labels or emotions to the situation. They see people as they are, without distortion. This ability to see clearly, without the filter of judgment, is one of the most powerful signs of spiritual growth. But here's where it gets even deeper. Spiritual people are incredibly compassionate. They have a deep well of empathy for others because they've done the inner work of understanding themselves. They've faced their own pain, their own struggles, and in doing so, they've developed a profound sense of compassion for the struggles of others. They don't just sympathize with people, they feel what others are feeling on a deep, almost soul level. And if you're wondering whether someone is truly spiritual, here's a big clue: they don't engage in drama. They don't get involved in petty arguments or gotcha debates. They respect other people's beliefs and perspectives, even if they don't agree with them. You won't find a spiritual person trying to prove they're right or making others feel small. Instead, they communicate through their actions. They live their truth quietly and powerfully, and let that be the message. Now let's talk about meditation. If you want to recognize a spiritual person, look at their relationship with meditation. Meditation is like a doorway that connects the mind and the soul. It's the practice that helps a person quiet the constant noise of daily life and tune into the deeper currents of their being. Spiritual people understand that we have around 60,000 thoughts per day, and most of them are repetitive and pointless. Meditation helps them declutter their minds, creating space for real insight and peace. How often do you take the time to just sit in silence, to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them? A spiritual person has mastered this. Even if they only meditate for a few minutes each day, they've learned how to quiet their mind and connect with their inner stillness. And here's the thing: this practice spills over into the rest of their life. They move through the world with a calm, centered energy that's almost magnetic. You can feel it when you're around them. But let me ask you this: what are you doing to cultivate that stillness in your life? Are you making time for meditation, for reflection, for quiet moments where you can listen to your inner voice? Or are you constantly distracted, always running from one thing to the next, without ever stopping to breathe? Let's go deeper into the qualities of a spiritual person, those that aren't always visible on the surface, but can profoundly transform the lives of those around them. It's easy to think that spirituality is just about meditation or being calm, but the truth is, it runs much deeper than that. A spiritual person carries with them an energy, a presence that influences everything they touch. They bring a sense of peace, not because life is perfect for them, but because they've learned how to navigate life's imperfections with grace. One of the most powerful unseen qualities of a spiritual person is self-awareness. They are deeply in tune with their own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. This doesn't mean they're always perfect, or that they never struggle. It means they have the ability to observe themselves without judgment. They can recognize when they're being triggered, when old patterns are surfacing, and instead of reacting impulsively, they pause. They reflect. They learn. When was the last time you paused before reacting to something? How often do you let your emotions drive your actions without taking a moment to think about where those emotions are coming from? A spiritual person has cultivated a habit of self-reflection. They've trained themselves to look inward, to ask the hard questions, and to face the truth about themselves, even when it's uncomfortable. This self-awareness is what allows a spiritual person to grow continuously. They don't shy away from their flaws or weaknesses, they embrace them as part of their journey. They understand that growth doesn't come from avoiding pain or discomfort, it comes from facing it head-on and learning from it. And this is why they seem so grounded, so unshakable. It's not that they don't experience challenges, but that they have learned how to navigate those challenges with a sense of inner calm. Let me ask you something: how often do you embrace your own flaws, your own imperfections? Or do you spend most of your time trying to hide them, hoping that no one will notice. A spiritual person understands that true strength comes from vulnerability. They don't need to pretend to be perfect because they've accepted the imperfection that comes with being human. Another unseen quality of a spiritual person is their ability to see beyond the surface. They don't get caught up in appearances, in the superficial aspects of life. They understand that what we see with our eyes is only a small fraction of the whole picture. They look deeper, into the heart of things, into the energy behind actions and words. This is why they are often so intuitive. They can sense what's really going on beneath the surface, even if it hasn't been spoken out loud. Think about the last time you were in a conversation with someone. Did you only listen to their words, or did you also pick up on the energy they were bringing? A spiritual person listens with their whole being. They don't just hear what you're saying, they feel what you're not saying. They can sense your emotions, your intentions, and they respond to that deeper level of communication. This ability to see beyond the surface is what makes a spiritual person so compassionate. They understand that everyone is carrying hidden struggles, hidden pain, and they approach others with empathy rather than judgment. They don't assume they know someone's story just by looking at them. They take the time to connect on a soul level, to understand the deeper currents that are driving someone's actions. But here's something important to realize: being spiritual doesn't mean you never get angry, or sad, or frustrated. It doesn't mean you live in a constant state of bliss. A spiritual person embraces all emotions. They understand that emotions are part of the human experience, and they don't try to suppress or deny them. Instead, they allow themselves to feel fully, to experience the depth of their emotions, and then they let them pass. When was the last time you allowed yourself to fully feel an emotion without pushing it away or trying to distract yourself from it? A spiritual person knows that emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and then they fade away. The key is not to get stuck in them, but to let them move through you, to learn from them, and then to release them. This brings us to another unseen quality of a spiritual person: detachment. Now, I don't mean detachment in the sense of apathy or indifference. I mean detachment in the sense that they don't cling to outcomes. They don't try to control everything that happens in their life. They understand that life is constantly changing, that nothing is permanent, and they've learned to flow with that. They're able to let go of things, of people, of situations that no longer serve them, without holding on to resentment or regret. Let me ask you a deep question. What are you holding on to right now that's keeping you from moving forward? Whether it's a past relationship, a failed project, or a dream that didn't come true, we all have things we struggle to let go of. A spiritual person has learned the art of surrender. They know when it's time to release something and trust that the universe has something better in store for them. And this trust in the universe is another key quality of a spiritual person. They don't live in a state of constant worry or stress because they've developed a deep sense of faith. Not necessarily in a religious sense, but in the sense that they trust the process of life. They know that everything happens for a reason, even if they can't always see that reason in the moment. They trust that the universe is always working in their favor, even when things seem to be falling apart. How often do you trust that things are working out for you, even when it looks like they're not? A spiritual person has learned to let go of the need to control every detail of their life. They've developed a sense of surrender, of allowing life to unfold as it will, while still taking inspired action when necessary. This doesn't mean they're passive or that they just sit back and do nothing. It means they've learned to balance action with surrender. They take steps toward their goals, but they don't obsess over the outcome. They know that what's meant for them will come to them, and they trust that the universe has a plan that's bigger and better than anything they could imagine. So as we wrap up this part, I want you to reflect on this. What would your life look like if you trusted in the process more? If you let go of the need to control everything and allowed the universe to guide you? Are you ready to embrace the unseen qualities that define a truly spiritual person? Now let's talk about how you can not only recognize a spiritual person but actually become one. It's one thing to observe these qualities in others, but it's a completely different and far more rewarding experience to embody them yourself. Becoming spiritual isn't about following a strict set of rules or adhering to some kind of dogma. It's about living in alignment with your highest self, and that's something anyone can do, regardless of their background or beliefs. The first step in embodying these spiritual qualities is to cultivate self-awareness on a daily basis. This means regularly checking in with yourself, noticing your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of everyday life and forget that you are the observer of your experience, not the victim of it. To be spiritual is to remember that you always have the power to choose how you respond to life, no matter what's happening around you. Think about your day-to-day life. How often do you operate on autopilot, reacting to situations without really thinking about it? How often do you let your emotions dictate your actions? A spiritual person is constantly aware of their inner state. They notice when they're getting angry, frustrated, or anxious, and instead of letting those emotions take over, they pause. They breathe. They ask themselves, what's really going on here? What can I learn from this moment? This is something you can start doing right now. The next time you feel a strong emotion bubbling up, whether it's anger, jealousy, or fear, pause for a moment. Don't react right away. Just observe the feeling. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts are coming up in your mind? By simply observing your emotions without judgment, you begin to create space between you and the emotion. And in that space, you can choose a more conscious, more spiritual response. Another key to living as a spiritual person is to develop a practice of non-attachment. This doesn't mean you stop caring about things or that you become indifferent to life. It means you stop clinging to outcomes. You stop defining your happiness by whether or not things go the way you want them to. A spiritual person understands that the only thing they can truly control is their own inner state. Everything else, the people in their life, the events that happen, the opportunities that come and go, is ultimately out of their control. How often do you find yourself getting upset because things didn't go the way you wanted them to? Maybe you didn't get the job you wanted. Maybe a relationship didn't work out. Maybe a plan you had fell through. A spiritual person knows that these external events don't determine their happiness. They trust that whatever happens is for their highest good, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. But here's the thing: non-attachment doesn't mean you stop having goals or dreams. It doesn't mean you stop striving for things. It just means you don't let your happiness depend on whether or not those things come to fruition. You take action, you do your best, but you release the outcome. You trust that whatever is meant to happen will happen, and you stay centered in your own inner peace, regardless of the results. One of the most practical ways to cultivate non-attachment is through meditation. Meditation is like a training ground for the mind. It teaches you how to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. It helps you develop the ability to sit with discomfort, to face difficult emotions and to let them pass without reacting. This skill is invaluable in everyday life because it allows you to move through the world with a sense of calm, even when things don't go according to plan. If you don't already have a meditation practice, now is the time to start. You don't need to meditate for hours on end. Even 5 or 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference. The key is consistency. The more you meditate, the more you'll notice how your mind works, and the more you'll be able to detach from the constant stream of thoughts and emotions that usually run your life. But here's something even more important. Living as a spiritual person means embracing the present moment. So many of us are caught up in the past or the future, reliving old memories, worrying about what's going to happen next, that we forget to be here, now. A spiritual person knows that the present moment is all there ever is. They've learned to be fully present, whether they're meditating, talking to a friend, or simply washing the dishes. How much of your life do you spend in the present moment? Or are you always somewhere else, either in your mind or on your phone? A spiritual person values the present moment because they understand that this is where life happens. The past is gone, and the future hasn't arrived yet. The only place where you can truly connect with yourself, with others, and with the divine is in the here and now. One simple way to practice being present is to focus on your breath. Whenever you find yourself getting lost in thought, worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, or dwelling on something that's already over, bring your attention back to your breath. Feel the air moving in and out of your body. Let that be your anchor to the present moment. Over time, this practice will help you develop a deeper sense of peace and presence in everything you do. Another essential quality of a spiritual person is compassion. Compassion isn't just about being kind to others, though that's a big part of it. It's also about being kind to yourself. A spiritual person knows that they are not perfect, and they don't expect themselves to be. They treat themselves with the same love and kindness that they would offer to a close friend. How compassionate are you toward yourself? Do you criticize yourself when you make mistakes? Do you hold yourself to impossible standards? A spiritual person understands that self-compassion is the foundation of all spiritual growth. Without it, you can't truly be compassionate toward others because you're always coming from a place of lack or judgment. To cultivate self-compassion, start by paying attention to your inner dialogue. How do you talk to yourself when things don't go as planned? Are you harsh and critical, or are you gentle and understanding? Whenever you catch yourself being unkind to yourself, pause and ask, would I say this to a friend? If not, it's time to change the way you speak to yourself. And finally, living as a spiritual person means serving others. Spirituality isn't just about personal growth or inner peace. It's about using what you've learned to make the world a better place. A spiritual person understands that we are all connected, and they feel a deep sense of responsibility to contribute to the well-being of others, whether that's through acts of kindness, offering support, or simply being a presence of love and light. How are you serving others? How are you using your gifts, your talents, and your energy to uplift those around you? A spiritual person knows that true fulfillment comes not from what we get, but from what we give. The more you give of yourself, the more you'll realize that service is one of the highest forms of spiritual expression. As we conclude this journey, I want you to reflect on this. What would your life look like if you fully embraced these spiritual qualities? If you lived with more self-awareness, more non-attachment, more presence, more compassion, and more service? Are you ready to embody the spiritual path, not just in theory, but in every moment of your daily life? The truth is, spirituality is not something you do. It's something you are. It's a way of being, a way of living that aligns you with the highest version of yourself. And when you live from that place, life becomes not just something to survive, but something to thrive in. Are you ready to step into that life?